this year, the whole congregation had a chance to take part in telling Jesus' story through art. Pastor Paul Oman creates artwork that allows people of all ages to partake in telling Bible stories. Jesus loved to teach people about how God wants people to live.
God takes care of us.
Then Jesus said,
"Don't worry about what you're going to eat or what you might wear or when you're going to grow taller. God will take care of these things for you. Look at the birds. Do they worry about what they eat? Of course not. God made sure they have food. Look at the flowers. Do they worry about what color they are? Of course not. God made them beautiful in their own way, and God makes you beautiful too. You're beautiful simply because you are you."
Then Jesus said,
"Listen, there is far more life than worry. Work gets you nowhere, so stop. The one thing you need is to put God first. Trust that God will take care of you."
When Jesus heard about what had happened to John the Baptist, he withdrew by boat privately to a solitary place. Hearing of this, the crowds followed him on foot from the towns. When Jesus landed and saw a large crowd, he had compassion on them and healed the sick. As evening approached, the disciples came to him and said,
"How are we supposed to feed all these people?"
Jesus replied,
"They don't need to go away. You can find food."
The disciples didn't know what to do. Just then, Andrew pointed to a young child and said,
"Here is a boy who has 5 small loaves of bread and 2 fish. It is something, but it certainly isn't enough food for all these people."
The boy looked very nervous as he said in a small voice,
"Sis, please take my food if it will help."
Jesus took the 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish that the boy offered and asked his friends to have the crowd sit down. About 5,000 people sat in the grassy meadow by the lake that day. After Jesus gave thanks to God, he blessed the 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. Then he shared the food with all of the people who were there that day. All 5,000 people ate until they were full.
God must have sent Jesus to us.
It was a day the boy, the disciples, and all of the people would never forget.
6 days before Passover, Jesus entered Bethany where Lazarus, so recently raised from the dead, was living. Lazarus and his sisters invited Jesus to dinner at their home. Martha served. Lazarus is one of those sitting at the table with them. Mary came with a jar of very expensive aromatic oils, anointed and massaged Jesus' feet, and then wiped them with her hair. The fragments of the oils filled the house. Judas Iscariot, one of his disciples, even then getting ready to betray him, said,
"Why wasn't this oil sold and the money given to the poor? It would have been easily bought 300 silver pieces."
He said this not because he cared 2 cents about the poor, but because he was a thief. He was in charge of their common funds, but also embezzled them. Jesus said,
"Let her alone. She's anticipating and honoring the day of my burial. You always have the poor with you. You don't always have me."
Friends,
Jesus said to his disciples,
I need to go to Jerusalem. I got some important things to do, and I want to celebrate Passover with you. Will you come with me?
"Sure."
said the disciples.
Passover is a great holiday.
Such good food.
And what a wonderful story Passover celebrates. The exodus of God's people, the Israelites from Egypt.
It's good to be with friends and family at Passover.
So Jesus and his friends started to go to Jerusalem. When they got close to the city, Jesus said,
I'd like 2 of you to go borrow a donkey in the next village over. Please tell the owner I need it. He'll understand.
When the 2 friends came back with the donkey, Jesus climbed on its back and rode down the hill into the city of Jerusalem. The disciples followed behind him. Suddenly, they found themselves in a parade. People were singing and shouting,
Hosanna! Hosanna! Here comes the King! Hosanna! Praise God!
People all over heard the shouting and singing, and they joined the parade too. They started taking off their coats and laying them on the ground for Jesus and the donkey to walk on. They pulled palm branches down from the trees and waved them as they sang. The crowds gave Jesus a royal welcome as he rode into the city, just like a king. But Jesus was a very different king. He was a king of peace. Not everyone understood that. Jesus was not at all what they were expecting. They thought the crowd was too loud and the parade was too big.
Who is that man?
Someone asked.
What's going on here?
Asked another. The crowd answered,
This is Jesus! He has come to save us!
Some of the religious leaders murmured,
Hush! Tell your friends to be quiet.
but Jesus said,
We can try to make these people be quiet, but that wouldn't make a difference because today the whole earth is celebrating.
As they left Bethany the next day, he was hungry. Off in the distance, he saw a fig tree in full leaf. He came up to it expecting to find something for breakfast, but found nothing but fig leaves. It wasn't yet the season for figs. He addressed the tree.
No one is going to eat fruit from you again, ever.
And his disciples overheard him. They arrived from Jerusalem. Immediately, on entering the temple, Jesus started throwing out everyone who had set up shop there, buying and selling. He kicked over the tables, the bankers, and the stalls of the pigeon merchants. He didn't let anyone even carry a basket through the temple. And then he taught them, quoting this text.
My house was designated a house of prayer for the nation. You've turned it into a hangout for thieves.
The high priests and religion scholars heard what was going on and plotted how they might get rid of him. They panicked, for the entire crowd was carried away by his teaching. At evening, Jesus and his disciples left the city. In the morning, walking along the road, they saw the fig tree shriveled to a dry stick. Peter, remembering what had happened the previous day, said to him,
Rabbi, look, the fig tree you cursed is shriveled up.
Jesus was matter of fact.
Embrace this God life. Really embrace it, and nothing will be too much for you. This mountain, for instance, just say, go jump in the lake. No shuffling, no hemming, no hawing, and it's as good as done. That's why I urge you to pray for absolutely everything, ranging from small to large. Include everything as you embrace this God life, and you'll get God's everything. And when you assume the posture of prayer, remember that it's not all asking. If you have anything against someone, forgive. Only then will your heavenly Father be inclined to also wipe your slate clean of sins.
One of the 12, they called Judas Iscariot, went to chief priests and asked,
What are you willing to give me if I deliver Jesus to you?
So they counted out for him 30 pieces of silver. From then on, Judas watched for an opportunity to hand him over.
As the friends got ready for the meal, Jesus put water in a large bowl and knelt down on the floor. He wanted to wash the feet of each disciple. When it was Peter's turn, Peter said to Jesus,
You will never wash my feet.
Jesus replied,
Peter, you don't understand what I am doing now, but you will later.
Peter loved Jesus so much that he said,
Then don't just wash my feet, but my head and my hands also.
Peter wanted to be as close to Jesus as possible.
Jesus knew that the time had come for him to leave this world. He wanted to share his last Passover meal together with his 12 closest friends, the disciples. Jesus loved his friends and wanted to show him his love in a very caring way. As they were eating, Jesus sadly told his disciples,
Soon one of you will betray me. One of you will tell people who don't like me where I am so they can take me away.
This upset the disciples, and each one said,
It's not me, is it?
It's not me.
Not me.
It's not me, is it?
I would never do that.
When Judas said this, Jesus gently replied,
Yes, Judas, you will betray me.
Then Jesus picked up the loaf of bread. He blessed and gave some to each of his friends, saying,
Take this bread and eat it. This is my body.
Then Jesus picked up a cup of wine. He gave thanks and said,
Drink this. It is my blood which I must give up so the sins of my people may be forgiven.
When the meal was over, Jesus and his friends went to a place called the Mount of Olives. Jesus said sadly,
Soon you will all leave me.
Peter felt bad.
Even if all the others leave you, I won't.
He said. Jesus looked at his dear friend and said quietly,
Truly I tell you, this very night before the rooster crows, you will pretend you don't know me 3 times.
Peter said.
Jesus, I love you too much to even do that to you.
And all of the other disciples said the same thing.
It was a very sad day when Jesus died. The soldiers who had arrested Jesus teased him for pretending to be a king. They took his clothes and put on king's purple cloak on him. They made him a crown of vines with sharp thorns and put it on Jesus' head. Ouch! The soldiers made Jesus carry a heavy wooden cross. The cross was too heavy for him. Jesus fell and skinned his knees, and the cross tumbled to the ground. A man in the crowd carried the cross the rest of the way.
The soldiers nailed Jesus' hands and feet to the cross. They raised Jesus' cross up on a hill between two other men.
The other men were thieves, and they were being crucified too. One of the men was angry with Jesus.
If you were a powerful king, can't you save yourself? Why don't you save us too?
The man spat at Jesus, but the other thief believed in Jesus. He shouted back,
Don't you know who this is? This is God's son. We are being punished for our mistakes. Jesus shouldn't be here.
The man turned to Jesus and asked,
Will you take me to heaven with you?
Jesus looked at the man and loved him. Jesus told him,
Yes, today we will be in heaven together.
After a while, the world grew very dark, as if a terrible thunderstorm was coming. It was as if all of creation was crying because Jesus was about to die. Jesus was feeling all alone and prayed to see if God was still there. Of course, God never left Jesus. God was with him the whole time. Jesus looked at the crowd. He was so sad that people didn't believe that he was God's son. He asked God to forgive them for killing him. The soldiers offered him some sour wine, but he didn't want to drink it. He was ready to die. Finally, Jesus had fought for long enough. He said, God, the work you gave me to do here is finished. He breathed a final, long, slow breath, and then he died.
It was early in the morning on the third day after Jesus died. The sun was pink and red with the first light of the sun. The woman didn't notice the sky. They hurried to the cave that contained Jesus' body. Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of James, led the way. Two others, Salome and Joanna, carried the spices to rub on the body of Jesus. They had a job to do. When the tomb of Jesus came in sight, they froze. Uh-oh. They had forgotten about the huge stone that sealed the opening to the cave. How would they move it? The women kept going closer to the cave anyway. As they came closer, the women could see that the stone had already been rolled away. They peeked inside. Ooh, it was dark in there. Brr, it was cold in there. Drip, drop. It was damp in there. What? It was empty in there. Jesus was gone. An angel appeared in sparkling white clothes. The glow from the angel brightened even the darkest corners of the cave. The women shielded their eyes from the blinding light.
Don't be afraid. Jesus isn't here. This is a place for the dead. Jesus is alive. Hurry, go tell the disciples.
The women did not delay. They ran to tell Jesus' friends what they had seen and heard. Oof! Mary bumped into a man, tripped, and fell at his feet. Wait, she knew those feet. A familiar hand reached out to help her. Wait, she knew that hand. She looked up. Yes, she knew that smile. It was Jesus.
Hello,
Jesus said. Jesus was really alive. The woman hugged his feet and shouted with joy.
go tell the others the good news that I am alive.
Jesus said.
I will meet them in Galilee. I can't wait to see them again.
The woman had a new job to do. They had to tell everyone that Jesus was alive.
3 days after Jesus died, Cleopas and his friend were slowly walking down the road to Emmaus. They were walking slowly because they felt very sad.
Why did Jesus have to die?
After a while, a stranger began to walk along with them. The stranger was really Jesus, but Cleopas and his friend didn't know it.
What are you talking about?
Are you the only person in town who doesn't know what just happened?
They told the stranger what had happened to Jesus.
Jesus was a great teacher.
We hoped he was the one God promised would save the world, but instead, he died on a cross. We took Jesus' body down and put it in a tomb. This morning, our friends went to the tomb, but Jesus' body was gone. They said there was an angel there instead, and the angel told our friends, Jesus is alive, but...
Stop being silly. How many times do you need to hear this? It was God's plan for Jesus to die. and become alive again to save the world.
By now, they were almost to Emmaus. Cleopas invited the stranger to stay for dinner. During dinner, the stranger picked up a loaf of bread, broke it, blessed it, and gave each man a piece. All of a sudden, Cleopas and his friend recognized the stranger. It was Jesus. But then Jesus disappeared. Cleopas and his friend jumped up, ran from the room, and went to tell the rest of Jesus' disciples that Jesus really was alive. God kept another promise.
We love to tell the story. 'Twill be thy fame and glory to tell the old story of Jesus and his love. We love to tell the story of pleasant to repeat. What seems each time we tell it more wonderfully sweet. We love to tell the story, for some have never heard the message of salvation from God's own holy word. We love to tell the story.